Felix Jr., and I'm guessing that you folks are here because you heard some tales about a little building just like this one, being the birthplace of the great Ford Motor Company. Well, if you have a few moments, I'll be happy to tell you what really happened not too long ago in a little tiny shed. You see, I had retired to a duplex on Bagley Avenue in Detroit. A few years later, back in 1893, a nice couple moved into the other half of the home. Henry Ford and his wife Clara had only been married a few years at the time. Now, Henry was working as the chief engineer at the Detroit Edison Illuminating Company. Clara was busy at home raising their son Edsel. And while you probably know Henry Ford as a wealthy industrialist, he didn't have much of the time. Henry, in fact, spent every spare dime he had chasing the dream of creating a horseless buggy. Like many inventors across the nation, Henry Ford was determined to create a commercial automobile. Now that shed was the site of nearly all of Henry's early experiments. I was fortunate enough to be able to watch him work every now and then. Little did I know that I had a front row seat to history in the making. Henry was perhaps the most persistent fellow I'd ever met, and it's a good thing. You see, inventing something involves a lot of trial and error, and few people have the patience for it. Henry, however, always seemed to be trying something new, putting together new parts and pieces and hoping that everything would work just as he imagined. Occasionally they would, but more often than not, things wouldn't quite come out right. But for Henry, well, he'd just take the thing apart and start all over again. Now, the first big hurdle for Henry Ford was to create a gasoline-powered engine. For those of you like me who don't know too much about mechanics, it works by mixing air and gasoline, igniting the mixture, and moving a piston, which then turns the motor. Well, Henry tried and tried to create a working engine and to get the perfect mix of fuel and air to ignite. And where, may you ask, was he finally successful? Well, no, it wasn't in the little shed. He actually first started it up at Clara's kitchen sink. That's right. With her help, Henry started his first gasoline-powered engine while it sat on Clara's drain board. Surprisingly, Henry didn't let it go on for too long. You see, this momentous event occurred on Christmas Eve, and poor Clara was busy trying to fix the Christmas dinner. Now, once Henry knew he could build an engine, he was bound and determined to make one that he could actually power a vehicle with. His first stab at creating a car looked a little like a cross between a tiny horse-drawn carriage and a bicycle. The name Henry gave it was the Quadricycle. As Henry struggled to create his first automobile, he often had friends stopping by. You see, he had the uncanny ability to get people to believe in his dreams, and they worked tirelessly to help him achieve them. In fact, Henry would often direct much of the effort, while his friends put in much of the work. They were so inspired that they would even assemble pieces and parts at their own workshops, and then bring them here to add them to Henry's quadricycle. When he finally succeeded, the quadricycle was unique, creative, and it even ran well enough to take him places. So in June of 1896, the first Ford car was ready to tour the streets of Detroit. Unfortunately, Henry had forgotten one small detail: the door. You see, when Henry finished his project, the doors in the room were all the same size, just right for people, not big enough for his quadricycle. As always, Henry never let anything stand in his way. He simply grabbed an axe and proceeded to make the door a little bigger. Once he made his way through, Henry and his new quadricycle were touring the streets of Detroit. Although it would be several years before Henry would have a successful automobile manufacturing business, that young man was well on his way. Now, I know a little building like this one doesn't look like much, but that little shed holds a special place in my heart, and in American history for that matter. It's where I sat night after night watching a determined young man chase after a dream. Henry Ford made that dream a reality, and the world was never the same. So the next time you hop in your car, turn the key and press the gas pedal, just remember, the man who brought the automobile to the masses started it all in a little shed, and of course, in Clara's kitchen sink.